So how do we trade US session? Fantastic question. But the first thing we're going to do is dive into whoa. Fucking hell. So how do we trade US session? Ugh. So how do we trade in US session? Well, before we start and before I tell you anything, I am going to tell you that if you look on the chart, you see red candles, you see beige candles. Unless you're colorblind, then I have no idea what you're seeing. However, the beige indicates US session, the red indicates Asia and London session. Now, I do say it most videos. However, if we are trading US session, then I have no interest, apart from the support and resistance zones, that London session and Asia session give us. So I'm only interested in getting zones from previous US session highs or previous US session lows. And I will show you how to do that. So jumping onto the chart, you can immediately see, well, what are we looking for? Well, I can tell you one thing. The first thing we do is find structure. Now, I have made a video on this. So if we grab our tool here, we can find, well, what if the market does something? What do we want to do if it does that something? All right, that's the easiest way I can put it. So basically, you draw out the highs and lows of these US sessions from the bottom of the body to the bottom of the wick. And again, with the higher zones, you go through the top of the body to the top of the wick, like so. And then you find zones that, well, if we get a break above here, I'd like to be in buys because the structure has broke. Now, already you can see that, look, if structure likes to come up here in US session, gives a tap back in, then we can take it to the next zone here. Or if we do get a break below this zone here and get a valid tap in and a valid 5-minute engulfing candle entry to take to the downside, then we would just take price to the downside, and then we can find further targets. For example, stick out like sore thumbs, don't they? And feel free, if you want to use this indicator, it is in the Discord, but feel free to make the colors whatever you like. And yeah, there is color options for London and Asia as well. So you can see in my older videos, I had blue, white and black. But now I've just decided I'm going to have just 2 colors because I only trade US session now. But if you do want to trade London, there's 3 different candle colors and the time frames that you need the indicator on to get the US zones. And it works no matter where you are. If you're in Bulgaria, the US of A, anywhere. If you're in England, obviously it works. I'm point and proof. And if you can't tell I'm British, I'm doing something wrong. But you can clearly see when we open up the charts for the day that we're going to be looking for something like this once US session opens. I'm not interested if price opens up in here and gives us a tap in here and a valid reaction back down. I'm not interested. I only want to see a break of one of these levels because then we've broken a structure. We then hopefully get a tap in, and then we can hopefully take price further to the downside. That is what we're looking for. So that is it. When we come to silver, gold, US 30 and US 100, we trade a little bit differently. It's actually easier to trade them than these. But if we just jump to the 5-minute time frame here, all we're going to be looking for is a simple break above, a retest in. As you can see here, we had our engulfing candle right here. So the body of the candle has engulfed the previous body of the candle. I don't care too much about wicks. I simply just want a bigger body to close next to the other candle. That's it. That's all I'd be looking for. So we'd be in for buys. Now, where would you put your stops? The 3 rules that we use. Below the bodies, below the wicks, below the zones. If it's below the wicks, it's going to be below the bodies. I understand this, but I like to say it anyway. So in this case, we have it below the zone. We have it below the wicks, as we can see here. We have our entry right here. We have the engulfing candle. And our target can be previous US session highs. So this would be basically a 1 to 2. But if you jump back on the chart, we've simply just targeted a previous US session high. So that's literally all you have to do. And it's that simple, and we can go through many, and I will go through another example, but we can go through many examples like this where you get prime examples. So if we play price on here, Price likes to come back down, tap back in the zone. And this is why you have it below the zone. And this is why you don't get too carried away with moving your stop loss to break even, or just taking too many profits out of the market when you've made X percentage. So price has gone up, tapped in the zone, gave us an engulfing candle, so we got our entry. We followed our plan to a T, but price then pushed up, gave us a bit of hope, and came all the way down. Now, in the live market, if you're looking at this and you're not experienced and you don't trust your plan, you are going to be thinking, oh great, it's going to fail, I'm going to get out now. And then you're going to lose all your profits, and then you don't follow your plan, and then you change strategy, and then it becomes a whole thing. So you can see where I'm going with this, right? So just stick to a strategy. It don't have to be mine. It don't have to be whoever's. Just pick one that you really like. Prove to yourself that it's profitable by back testing, and do that yourself. And then keep going, and just keep using it. Keep failing. Keep losing money. Keep doing it until eventually you're like, you know what? It's clicked. And eventually it will click. So without further ado, if we continue to play price on here, a lot of people would have been out of this trade because they're like, oh, well, it's done the push up and now it's coming all the way back down. It's below the zone and below the wicks for a reason. So just leave it, leave it. And then you can see eventually we do get our push up and we do explode past the zone. Do we get a retest back in? A little bit. I mean, we get 15 minutes worth of basically just consolidating at this zone. So you can see how they are valid. And we'll jump into yet another example. So again, if we jump to the charts, we are simply looking for previous US session highs and lows that we can get entries for and see if price does this, I want to do that. This is a sort of mindset you need to develop. If the price comes to this point and does this, I want to do that. Not, okay, the 4 hour tells me this, I'm going to be in buys because the 4 hours is bullish. No, if price does this, then do something. You know what I mean? So for example, if we jump right into it, and again, I do daily analysis on the Discord, so feel free by all means to ask me any questions as well. If price can come into US session and give us a break above and a 5-minute retest, bullish engulfing candle to take us higher to the upside, then I want to be in for buys. If, and you can probably see it already, if we break this zone below here and actually get a solid break right here and we get our retest in, then we can take price to maybe these US session highs right here. And this is a lot of the game plan half the time. If you look at the daily analysis on the Discord, you can clearly see what I look for every day. And to be fair, it often involves just the previous US session highs and lows, because normally you do get just a break, a retest. You get a 5-minute engulfing, or you wait for a 5-minute engulfing. If you don't get one, you don't trade. Mistakes people make is the candle doesn't close as a 5-minute bullish candle. They've got in at 3 minutes because they think, oh, it's going to close bullish, and it doesn't. And then you haven't followed your plan, you haven't followed your rules, etc. You lose the trade and you blame the strategy, not yourself. I have been there. I have been there, trust me. So we have our 2 zones here, and this is it, guys. You don't have to go years and years back, or months, or even weeks. I mean, we literally had yesterday's zones. The previous example was yesterday's zones. And it's stuff like this where you can get your entries from. So if price wants to break the structure, which is a key point, if it does find yourself breaking a structure, getting a retest back in and a valid reaction, then you can take price up. Then you can be like, okay, well, price has broken structure to the upside, or price has broken structure to the downside. Therefore, we can take the trade further down. Therefore, we can take the trade further up if it breaks this zones. And once it does break one of these zones, you can then be like, okay, well, it's broke to the downside. So what can we target? What are the other US session zones that we can target? They scream at you when you have this sort of indicator on. And then it's simply just a case of marking it out, and yet you'd have your target right here. If we were in for buys, where would we target? Well, we have previous US session high right here. If we just get it right. Lovely stuff. So that is one we could target, or we could target levels where price has tapped into multiple times, aka basically a support of resistance level. So I know it's the 5 minute and I know the reaction won't be strong, but you can guarantee from my experience that there will most likely be a reaction of some sort. So if you put, okay, look, price has tapped in there and reacted quite dramatically off this level. It's for some reason come down and not wanted to break. So therefore, this is going to be my first target. This is going to be the target where I move my trade to break even. This is going to be the target where I take profits out the market. Or this is going to be my whole target just in general. And then you could have a second target maybe that is this top zone right here. Just be wary of 5 o'clock. Every trade we do, we stop trading at 5 o'clock. If we're losing and the clock hits 5 p.m., we take any losses out of the market. If we're winning, we take any profit out of the market. And that's it. So 5 o'clock is the cutoff for us. That is the rule. And you can start developing and making your own strategy. So you wait for a break above and an engulfing. For me, this is not a valid break above the zone. Now we have a valid break above the zone, but I want to see an engulfing candle. So if we can get an actual retest, like a break above now, which we've gotten, and a genuine retest before we take price to the upside, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to be, and that is what I'm aiming for. So again, if we play price on and see if we get an example, price tapped in again, and this is basically the dream sort of entry candle that you want. A previous small close with a big engulfing. Where would you have your stops? Well, below the wicks, below the bodies, and below the zone. Again, we'll have our take profit all the way here for the sake of the video. But if price does reach here, then you could manage, okay, look, I'm going to be break even when it hits this point. I'm going to take profits when it hits this point. Or I'm just going to take all my profit out of the market if we hit this point, because I don't want to be in the trade any longer, and that is enough profit for me for the day. Like I say, we're aiming for a 1 to 4 in this scenario. Realistically, let's say you're aiming for here, it's still a 1 to 2. You're risking 2%, you've just made 4%, etc., etc. So again, we're just going to play price on here, but it's basically the rules that you want to understand. And you can see price keeps coming, tapping back. I mean, we're very much past 5 o'clock now. So realistically, your candle close would have been about here for a 1 to 3. But you can notice how price, you gave it an engulfing, and make sure it's below the zone, below the previous bodies, and below the previous wicks. And then you can sort of catch trades like this, and you won't get caught out by getting stop loss like this, because it's a simple case of you've managed that, you've equated for, look, okay, look, if price does come down, then I have made room for it. I've accounted for spreads as well, and my target is reasonable. We're not reaching for the moon, we're not aiming for the stars. It's reasonable, and it's simply just like this. That's all I do on a daily bias. On a basis, sorry, and you can see this on my Discord, like I say, when I do my daily analysis, and it's free, and it's, feel free to have a look. If you don't like it, fair enough, I can't argue with that. However, if you do want to give it a try, please feel free to backtest this and give it a go, and make sure you get a break of structure. All right, it's not always going to be yesterday's highs and lows. Majority of the time it will be, but it's not always going to be that, especially if you're in a range. You're probably going to have to target highs and lows from like a week ago, something like that. But all that will come with experience. So all I'm saying is, the main point of this video really is how we trade US session. But ideally, I want you to stick to a strategy that you're trading. If you like the one you're trading right now, please stick to it, and please just push through the hard times. If you do take losing trades, learn from them, and you're going to come back stronger. And that is the main point. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.